Simone Biles is saying, listen, girls, work hard, but if a man comes into your locker room, you accept that man. You do not kick that man out of your locker room. You embrace him. If a man comes to try out on your team and takes your spot, you congratulate him. That's what you do. That's what Simone Biles is telling young girls. Simone Biles is telling young girls, if a man shows up in the gym to compete against you and annihilates you on the court or on the field, you congratulate that man. You do not shame him. That's Simone Biles' message. That's Simone Biles' message to little girls. A man shows up in your locker room and decides to display his penis in front of you. You do not shame that man. You embrace him. Don't you dare kick him out of that locker room. She is shaming young girls for not wanting to share a locker room with a man. That's what she's doing. So shame on Simone Biles. You should be absolutely ashamed of yourself. And you don't have any children yet, Simone Biles. But when you do, and God forbid, your daughter has to go and compete against a man or share a locker room with a man, and it's widely accepted, it's going to be because of you. And all of a sudden, you're going to change your tone and say, I don't want my girl in the locker room with a man with his penis hanging out. And I don't want it either. So until you're there, until you've had to play against a boy in your sports, until your daughter has to share a locker room with a man with a penis, shut your mouth. God bless Riley Gaines.
You're listening to the Alec Lake Show. The future is family.
Simone Biles never had to compete against men, but she thinks your daughter should have to. Simone Biles, the Olympic gold medalist, has completely decided to throw her legacy down the drain by sticking up for men playing in women's sports. She came out against Riley Gaines, who is probably one of the biggest champions we have for women in this country, who is standing up for young girls so that they don't have to compete against men in their sports or have to shower in a locker room next to them. Okay, so Simone Biles decided to attack her. And I don't know if Simone Biles is trying to promote a new book or a new show, if she's got something coming out, but this kind of came out of nowhere, really. She tags Riley Gaines on X, and she puts out this tweet. You're truly sick. All of this campaigning because you lost a race. Straight up sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports. Maybe a transgender category in all sports. But instead, you bully them. One thing for sure is no one in sports is safe with you around. Okay, so right after that, after she says, instead you bully them, she decides to bully Riley Gaines and saying, bully someone your own size, which would ironically be a male. All right, so then she decides to body shame Riley Gaines right after that. So she's in an all-out attack on Riley Gaines here. Now, Riley Gaines fired back saying, this is so disappointing. My take is the least controversial take on the planet. Simone Biles being a male apologist at the expense of young girls' dreams. Didn't have that on my bingo card. Maybe she should compete in pommel horse and rings in 2028. Also saying, and the subtle hint at body shaming, please, I'm 5'5". Again, and now there's videos there of Simone Biles in a playful way competing against a man who's doing the pommel horse gymnastics on the floor there, and Simone Biles obviously can't do it. She fails miserably at it. And thank God she never had to compete against men. I mean, that's a good thing that she didn't have to face male competition. And neither should your daughter. Again, Simone Biles doesn't have a little girl. She doesn't have any kids. All right? I'm the father of a little girl. I don't want my little girl having to compete against men in sports. I don't want my little girl in a locker room with a man that's pretending to be a girl. If Simone Biles has a daughter that's trained her whole life in swimming or running or whatever category it may be, and then ends up getting beat and demolished by a man in that sport, her tune would instantly change and she would be against it, and she would be praising Riley Gaines for standing up for women. That's the truth. Simone Biles, who is a sore loser herself, we saw that when she lost in the Olympics. It became a big excuse train and everything else. She crumbled like a cracker. But if Simone Biles was beaten by a man, she would be absolutely crying her eyes out on X and calling out foul. This is wrong. I should have won. This guy beat me. He shouldn't be in this category. There's no way. There's no way. And if she was actually a mother and had a child that she had to watch get beaten by a man, or like the poor girl who had her whole face broken by a man playing volleyball against her, Simone Biles would be the first one advocating to get men out of women's sports. But because she is being influenced by the left, she decided to throw her whole legacy away. There's no parent on this planet that wants to see their little girl have to share a bathroom with a guy. It's zero. This is all being done to force this stuff down our throats. It's not reality. You could see it in the polls. You just go and talk to people, real people on the street, and ask them if they have a daughter. If they say yes, say, do you want your daughter in the same locker room with a man who pretends to be a girl? None of them will say yes, unless they've lost their mind. Also, too, an excellent question for Simone Biles. If Larry Nassar came out as a trans, would you want him moved into the women's prison? Now, this, of course, is the guy that, with all the abuse that went on in women's gymnastics. This guy who did so much harm to these girls. They wanted to, throw the book at this guy. He's in prison. Should they put him in the women's prison? They would say absolutely not. And again, if you are a man who thinks you're a girl, you have a mental condition. This is a mental problem that's going on. This isn't like all the world has to say, oh, let's all change the world to make this person who has a mental issue feel better. And it's not to shame them. It's not to make them feel belittled. We don't do that with people that have other mental illnesses. That's not what this is about. It's about preventing them from being in the locker room with girls that are trying to accomplish a goal that they've had for their entire lives. And it's about protecting women, protecting girls, which is exactly what Riley Gaines is doing. Simone Biles is the worst thing that could have ever happened to women's sports. The absolute worst thing that could have happened to women's sports, because she is loved and admired and appreciated by so many young girls in this country. And now she's advocating for their own demise. She's telling them they should support their own demise. And that is absolutely shameful. Simone Biles should be ashamed of herself, and she should apologize to Riley Gaines, apologize to the girls that are competing out there, and apologize to the parents of the little girls that we have in this country. Shame on you, Simone Biles. And you never had to do it. You never had to go up against a man in your sport. You never had to face that. And you're shaming Riley Gaines, who actually had to go and compete against a man. And you're deciding to make fun of her because she's sticking up for women. And if you haven't looked, the majority of this country does not want this lunacy to continue. Parents stood up strong against this, and it's just a shame. Simone Biles, there's no reason for you to come out and start doing this, to say, oh, we should uplift the trend. Go ahead. Go uplift these mentally ill people all you want. Don't put them in the locker room with my daughter. That's the bottom line. This fantasy land of men in women's sports has crushed the Democrat Party. And you know what? Personally, I hope they keep running with the ball. Because as long as they're in the camp, as long as Democrats support men beating women in sports, the Republicans will stay in power. As long as they keep that philosophy, Republicans will stay in power, because hardworking American families, American parents do not want to see that. They want to protect their young girls. They want their young girls to have a chance. They don't want to see, because as this gets, and they always say, oh, there's not that many cases of it. We see case after case of it popping up, right? We just seen the one in California where the man won the state championships against all the women. And another shameful display going on out there. But as this continues to be championed, you'll see a lot more of it, and you're going to see a lot more men who get beat in their own sport against men say, oh, wait a minute, if I go into the girls category here, I can be a champion. And it's disgusting. It should not be allowed to happen. Shame on Simone Biles. She took what was left of her legacy and completely threw it down the toilet. And God bless Riley Gaines. Thank God we have somebody like her standing up for our girls. And I'm 1,000%, as the parent of a little girl, 1,000% behind Riley Gaines. Simone Biles is saying, listen, girls, work hard, but if a man comes into your locker room, you accept that man. You do not kick that man out of your locker room. You embrace him. If a man comes to try out on your team and takes your spot, you congratulate him. That's what you do. That's what Simone Biles is telling young girls. Simone Biles is telling young girls, if a man shows up in the gym to compete against you and annihilate you on the court or on the field, you congratulate that man. You do not shame him. That's Simone Biles' message. That's Simone Biles' message to little girls. A man shows up in your locker room and decides to display his penis in front of you. You do not shame that man. You embrace him. Don't you dare kick him out of that locker room. She is shaming young girls for not wanting to share a locker room with a man. That's what she's doing. So shame on Simone Biles. You should be absolutely ashamed of yourself. And you don't have any children yet, Simone Biles. But when you do, and God forbid, your daughter has to go and compete against a man or share a locker room with a man, and it's widely accepted, it's going to be because of you. And all of a sudden, you're going to change your tone and say, I don't want my girl in the locker room with a man with his penis hanging out. And I don't want it either. So until you're there, until you've had to play against a boy in your sports, until your daughter has to share a locker room with a man with a penis, shut your mouth. God bless Riley Gaines.
You're listening to the Alec Show. The future is family.